two players, Lurlian. In the lower left position, as the blue Protoss, we do have White Ra himself. His opponent, in the lower right, it is the red Zerg player. It is Dimaga. And well, I am excited. We've had some good games so far. I don't know about you, Lurlian, but I'm loving Heart of the Swarm. I'm so glad all of Season 1 of ESET UK Masters is going to be held on Heart of the Swarm. It's cool, it's new, it's exciting, it's active, it's just everything I love in a game.
I'm looking forward to it too, especially the changes. I mean, the Wings of Liberty metagame has become a little bit stale. Every now and then we see a few Koreans or maybe an occasional European revolutionize some aspect of the game, but even if they do revolutionize something, it's going to be such a small aspect. But in Heart of the Swarm, everything is new, everything is good, and everything is going to be amazing. So I'm so hyped to be casting a lot of Heart of the Swarm over the next couple of weeks. I hope you are too, and I hope every viewer will join us in watching as we see... we see a bit of an early pull here by Dimaga.
I was hoping you were going to spot that, Lurlian. I was saying that, I was like, I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm going to let you finish the beautiful sentences you are saying. But of course, it was a quick pull. The double extractor trick as well. But White Ra has spotted it. He knows what is here.
Was it a temple?
Pardon? I believe it was a temple. We've got the 6 Zerglings coming out, and that's the important bit of information White Ra desperately needed to see. He needed to see, are there any banked lava? And if so, do they all instantly turn to eggs when that spawning pool finishes? Because it is very likely that it will be 6 Zerglings, as opposed to just mind games and going for some drones. So, White Ra doing the right thing behind this. He's got his forge up, he's getting the gateway up. He needs to really start considering completing that wall off, because, hey, that probe is scouting out what's going on. Goes to go and see that, hey, Hatchery is on the back of this. Would he see the additional 2 Zerglings? He does. So he knows there's going to be 8 Zerglings. The cannon coming down, Lurlian. The additional pylon, one more gateway can come down to complete that ramp if required. So there we go.
Yeah, you never want to take a risk of a run by. The cannon would probably have been done in time, but with 8 links, at least 6 of them would be able to get into your main base, and that's basically GG. You know, when 1 link gets by, 2 links get by, it's annoying but dealable. What? There's a gap? Oh my god, I don't think White Ra realized that, and Dimaga at first didn't believe it himself. Oh my god, I'm tilting my camera right now to look at the gateways.
There is a gap there.
There is a gap there.
That is incredibly frustrating for Dimaga, because his situation now... For White Ra, rather, because Dimaga, he can now block that Nexus for an incredible amount of time. Yes, this Zealot's coming out, but as long as the Zerglings give it the runaround and really just keep blocking this, it's delaying all of White Ra's plans for at least a good 10-20 seconds, potentially.
Yeah, his entire plans for the future are going to be thrown in the water, and he's going to have to replan the amount of kids that he wants to get, because everything's going to be changed up right now. His entire build order, his entire vision of the future is going to be different when your timing gets thrown off like that. Of course, his plans are already altered. When he saw the 10 pull, he was like, okay, well, I have to get a forge, I have to get a gateway, I have to get a cannon to be able to defend against this. But the opener, I think so far, is working out quite nicely for Dimaga. If White Ra had blocked off in the correct way with his gateways, he would have been in an equal position. Right now, I would say Dimaga is ever so slightly ahead.
I would say he is as well. He's got his 3rd base coming down now. If we look at the work account, he's keeping with White Ra, because obviously White Ra does not yet have his Nexus complete at the natural. So what you've really got to be considering, Lurlian, is that Dimaga, he went for an aggressive opening, but he expanded immediately after it. And the only downside is obviously this single Overlord is getting pushed back at the moment, so leaving that slightly exposed, it should be able to get away, but it's going to be close. No, it's not. It's going to die by literally 1 hit. If it was a second or 2 later, it may have survived. And the only thing I'm not disappointed to see, but slightly surprised at seeing, is that we do see White Ra going for a Stargate, although it has not been scouted by Dimaga. And that is quite substantial in itself.
Yeah, once again, the Stargate coming out near the ramp. He wanted to hide that from the Zergling in the main base. Didn't want the Zergling to see it. We also have an even bigger surprise coming up. A third base off of 2 Zealots, or maybe even 1 Zealot. A third base off of 1 Zealot and a Stalker. This is White Ra just going back to his normal build, though, Lurlian. He's sitting there and he's saying, look... But this is even earlier than in his normal build. Sorry to interrupt you there.
His normal build is 7 minutes. He always gets this down at around the 7-minute mark. And also the gas timing exactly the same, that he goes for 2 gas into the Stargate. He doesn't get Warp Gate research, though. That is the critical thing. That allowed him to get the Stargate up so much quicker. And as a result, he gets the 3rd gas just as the Stargate finishes and expands out to the 3rd. He uses the Oracle then to try and harass, but we see one Zergling has come in. It spots both the Oracle and also the 3rd base. That is some critical scouting information right there for Dimaga. But the Zealot and Stalker are harassing the 3rd base, and Dimaga now has to be pretty much everywhere at once.
He has got to defend a lot of different angles. The Oracle is now making its way towards that 3rd base. A lot of links were produced, and they are going to be able to save the life of this one queen here. Dimaga, is he going to be playing that crazy? Yes, he is playing the crazy queen style again. Already has 6 queens out on the field as we speak. So once again, going for the high queen count, he can have 2 queens to each base and be very safe from Oracle harassment. That's good for him. The Zergling speed is about halfway done. Some Zerglings out of Dimaga were moving towards the 3rd base, but the cannon has finished up. There is a mothership core there. It does not have enough energy for a photon overcharge on the Nexus just yet, but it will in just about 10 seconds. So the 3rd base relatively safe from the Zerglings, but more and more links are coming out. This is pretty crazy by Dimaga right now. 37 links out on the field. That's a big commitment.
I know it is. There's only 50 drones, so they're equal in the worker count. The 3 Oracles are on the field, and 2 of them looking to poke into the main. Only the 1 queen there, so WhiteWar can take that out very comfortably with the 2 Oracles. And yeah, we've got the Zergling streaming in now. We do have a 2nd cannon on its way. The photon overcharge goes down straight away, but of course the sentry gets taken out. So many speedlings here. WhiteWar going to use this opportunity to go and harass the main base of Dimaga. He needs to kill a lot though, because he's taking quite substantial damage here. He lost the sentry and also 9 workers, but as we see now, WhiteWar is going for the main base. He's trying to pick off those queens. Of course, 2 Oracles do kill 2 queens very easily, as we saw there. They've got a lot of energy on these Oracles as well. So drones are just melting now.
Oh my god, I can't believe Dimaga didn't pull his workers there. That is a big mistake. Of course, Zerg players not as used to, not very used to pulling their workers versus Protoss air harass. So maybe that caught him off guard a little bit. This Oracle needs to start moving, and it does start moving. So the Oracle is going to get out of there alive. The Queens are starting to chase it down. 4 Queens now out on the field, and I was gonna name the drone count there, but then it increased by like 20. So I'm just gonna stick to the worker kill tab. 14 workers killed by Rytra, and Dimaga has killed 11 workers so far. Still has a few speedlings out on the field that could try to sneak in there, maybe kill another probe. But for now, the game seems stabilized. Both players are going to be macroing up off on their 3 and 4 bases, it seems.
Indeed it does. We've got the 4th, as you said, for Dimaga, just on its way down now. Also a macro hatch coming down, and that's essential for Dimaga in this situation because he's lost quite a few drones. He needs to catch it up. Importantly, though, is that WhiteWar has managed to keep its 3rd base. And because of that, he's able to get a very nice probe count. We can see he's actually ahead in the worker count at the moment. And as a result, he needs to be really very proactive in getting up a good force now, because he's hitting that danger timing we've seen Dimaga really utilize time and time again this series of getting the Hydras out, using some roaches. I don't believe he's got the roach one this time, but he's going to go for Hydra heavy composition against the Gateway Oracle force. And until WhiteWar starts getting the Colossus out, he's not going to be able to deal with that should Dimaga decide to push. But important to note is the Hydra speed upgrade has only just started getting researched. Of course, that takes 100 seconds. And as a result, it's got to be complete before Dimaga is able to push out with those Hydras.
It's going to be a while, and by the time that he has that upgrade finished up, the muscular augment, which is what the Hydralisk speed upgrade is called, when they move 25% faster off creep, but not quite as fast as they do on creep, as Maddles mentioned before. By the time they get to the base of WhiteWar, he's going to have at least 1 Colossus out on the field, probably 2. And he might even have thermal lance finished up. So he's going to be in an amazing position. Has the 4th base on the way. It is really WhiteWar's game so far. He's been ahead in the supplies for a while. He's been ahead in the worker count for the early part of this game. And it's looking really good for him. He has been able to do the harassment with the Oracles in this game. Has got an Oracle alive with still 5 kills on him. And he might be flying around trying to do some more harassment. There's no Spore Crawlers in the main base, Maddles. There's no Spores and only 1 Queen and about 20 Hydras.
Yeah, the 20 Hydras are probably going to allow him to defend against the Oracles. But we do see now, with the Observer, the Oracles are going to be just picking off the creep tumors, pushing those back. And the one really important thing to note is actually Dimaga has got a hidden base from Waira. Waira has no clue about that top expansion. He can't see it. He hasn't seen any of the creep spread going that way. So for all he knows, Dimaga is still on 3 bases, which is maybe a bit of an oversight from the Protoss player, thinking he's nicely ahead, thinking Dimaga won't have that base yet. So it's not a huge problem because, of course, Widewire has just got his own 4th up now, but it is something that you do need to be scouting all those expansions of the Zerg, and really of any player. You need to know when they're expanding so you can react appropriately.
That's a good point. So it's a little bit sloppy by Widra. Has to be careful with his oracles because they almost flew into those 20, well actually not 20, 16 Hydras that I was talking about earlier that are positioned in the main base. Dimaga's like, I don't need spores, I'll just get 16 Hydras in my main base. That's going to keep me safe, and it will keep him safe. But as long as those Hydras are there, he's not going to have them anywhere else on the field. He's finally deciding to invest into 3 Spore Crawlers, which is going to make him very safe from Oracle harassment. And I think he's getting ready to attack those Spore Crawlers, of course, an indication that he wants to attack. And also his entire army moving out across the map, also an indication he wants to attack.
Now, I'm just looking at the defensive force here for Wipra. He does have 3 Colossi on the field, the third one just joining in. He's got a nice little defensive choke point to engage in, and of course, here we go, Photon Overcharge used on the Nexus. We see good engagements. The Colossi are very safe there, and Dimaga forced back, which is a good move. Meanwhile, Oracles are harassing the natural and main base. The 2 Oracles are flying in. They are going to try and kill a couple of drones. They're going to get Queen kill as well. 2 Oracles beat 2 Queens, but a nice transfuse goes down there actually. So that means that Dimaga will be able to clean up that harassment. But of course, Waira scaring back the main army. That is the important thing. Dimaga getting up the Colossi, ready, the Corruptors rather, ready to deal with the Colossi. Only 1 Void Ray. We saw in the previous games that mass Void Ray do beat Corruptors very effectively. So I'm hoping that will work quite well. But Waira committing more to air now as well, getting up the 2 additional Stargates, so perhaps anticipating the switch to Corruptor from Dimaga, which he has done very frequently both in this series and just generally in Heart of the Swarm.
Yeah, it is. Those Void Rays are so much more powerful. The first Void Rays are hitting the field right now. We have a second one about to join in. The Dark Shrine is on the way too, because why not? It's only 150, 150, as we see a Zealot harassing the 4th base of MTW Dimaga. Dimaga is responding, sending a few roaches there, but that Zealot did manage to get... Actually, I was not able to click on him before he died, but I think he killed somewhere between 6 and 8 workers, so that's definitely a good job there by that 1 Zealot into that 4th base of Dimaga. Dimaga now taking a 5th as well and making more and more Corruptors as Whitera is now fully maxed out. Whitera makes a lot of probes, by the way. He's on 83. That's why his army might look a little bit smaller than we're used to seeing.
Well, here we go, Lodian, with a big engagement. The Corruptors coming straight in, and they are able to snipe down those Colossus so quickly. It's insane. The Void Rays are nothing compared to that many Corruptors. And of course, with this, Waira just plowing forward. He's losing everything right there. All of his power units are going down. The Stalkers do remain. The Zealots and Immortals are apparently going to chase down the Hydras. But, well, that was a big loss for Waira, losing all of those Colossus and, of course, all of those Void Rays. The resupply from Dimaga is allowing him to max out. And, of course, that is a bit of a problem for Waira right now.
Whitera's overcommitting here. This is a big reinforcement wave out of Dimaga. He had so many larvae ready to reinforce, and Whitera should have retreated after that first initial engagement, which honestly wasn't too bad for him. He lost a lot of Colossi, he lost his Void Rays, yes, but now overcommitting hugely. He might be able to snipe the 4th base. That's a big win for him. And there's Zealots into the 3rd base as well, harassing, which is definitely what he needs to do right now. Whitera needs time to rebuild his army. He has still got a very untouched economy. He has Void Rays on the way, 3 at a time, DTs 6 on the way, Colossi 2 on the way, so he will have an army in just a minute or 2. He'll have a pretty big standing army and might be able to make a stand versus Dimaga, but right now Dimaga is up by 60 supply and he could just run over Whitera's 3rd base.
Indeed he could. Now, I am just seeing the fact that Dimaga is engaging this right. He's spreading out. He's going to go either side of this kind of central building thing we've got here to try and get the maximum surface area up. The Corruptors are probably actually going to go over this building in order to try and snipe everything off without being able to get hit by the Stalkers. And so, all in all, We do need to see a good engagement here for White Rock if he wants to stay in this. Dimaga, though, he's got so much stuff. The Void Rays dealing a lot of damage, of course. They are just destroying the Corruptors, but there is still a good number of units underneath them. Unfortunately, the Hydra count only at 2 now, so that means that the Void Rays would eventually clean everything up, and Dimaga forced back, and White Rock really showing that, hey, hang on, if I just make lots of Void Rays, I'm going to do good.
If I just get enough Void Rays and you don't build enough Hydras, I'm going to be in a pretty good position. We now see the first carrier of this entire series on the way. Not sure if that's going to be making the difference here. Carriers, of course, not the best, not the worst versus Hydras. And I think we're just going to see a pure Archon. No, he's also warping in Zealots. So Whitera is just rebuilding the army that he had before. He's just going back to Void Ray Colossi and now adding in a few of those carriers, and even building an Oracle there for a second, cancelling it. That would have been a mistake.
Yeah, he should go for just a couple of Colossi in order to deal with the Hydras. If Dimaga were to go for just pure mass up Hydra, it would help massively. But of course, Dimaga, he's on 4 bases against the 4 bases of Whitera now as well. So that economically means that actually Whitera's in a good spot. He's at 81 probes compared to the 66 drones. That is hugely advantageous to a Protoss player, as long as he keeps producing. But Dimaga is doing a great job of constantly engaging, constantly resupplying and dealing damage. But we can see Dimaga banking up a lot of minerals, so could really think about taking a few more. And we do have a DT actually harassing the 5th base attempt from Dimaga. And with that, it's going to go down even though there's no overseer morphing, just because there's no units coming to try and kill it. But in come lots of units to the 3rd Whitera, and Lurlian, Whitera's army is out of position.
Whitera's army was a little bit out of position. All the Corruptors are out of position too, and they're going to get melted. And now the Colossi reign supreme. Oh my god, Whitera's actually going to be able to do this. He will fend off this attack very comfortably. Dimaga completely out of position. His queens were not there. The queens were not able to transfuse anything. They're very late to the party. The 3 Colossi are still 2 of them remaining. The queens, of course, going to be going down. There's no way for them to be able to run out of there. They might be able to snipe this weak Void Ray if he really wanted to. And he does. Nice pick
Now
off.
that's the sort of thing where Whitera could have pulled it back, but instead he's just warping in mass DT right now to clean out those queens, morphing them into Archons. He's got carriers, and while Whitera did lose quite a lot, Dimaga lost an absolute massive unit, a completely maxed out army against Whitera's not maxed out, but he did manage to snipe this Nexus, which is immediately rebuilt by Whitera. But what you've got to remember is Whitera's also got this base to the north of his natural. So he's taking his 5th while denying the 5th of Dimaga. Just means that, hey, I'm going to be on equal bases at least for the near future. That is great news for you. And to be honest, this mass Void Ray style with a couple of Colossi supporting is showing to be very, very potent.
Yeah, it's basically another blast of the past where the Death Ball with a lot of Colossi and Void Rays used to be considered OP until the Infestors got their first buffs, and it's basically the same situation for Whitera right now. Dimaga not using any Infestors. He wants to finish this game with his Corruptors and his Roaches. He doesn't have Hive Tech either, I don't think. No, he's still on Lair, and we're 25 minutes into this game, so it really starts to get to the point where the Protoss just has this big death ball, and you cannot deal with it without either Hive Tech or a good amount of Infestors, and this could be the end for Dimaga. Whitera is comfortably holding here. He is losing a lot of his Colossi, though. The Void Ray is still reigning supreme in the air. It's actually a really close battle right now. Whitera ahead by about 10 supply. The last Colossus is going to go down too, and it seems like the only survivors of this battle will be 4 Corruptors and a few Zealots, as Stalkers are beginning to get warped in. But like you said, Maddles, the income advantage, that's the really big thing right now.
It is. The income advantage is hugely in Whitera's favor. 19 probes in his favor. And of course, we do still have some Void Rays, which were doing a nice little bit of harassment, I do believe, or at least I was sitting down there by the main doing that big fight. So we saw the 39 drones have been killed this game by Whitera, so he's doing a good job there. And the other thing I wanted to pick up on is the reason we're seeing this death ball of Colossi Void Ray come back into things is because of the fungal growth nerf. Fungal growth no longer deals bonus damage to armored, which makes it quite a bit less effective against both the Void Rays and of course the Colossi. And with it being a missile, it's harder to hit. It's going to be a difficult composition to get into, and due to Infestors not being so potent, the Infestation bit, of course, only just finishing up now at nearly 28 minutes, so Hive is so much later.
So what are you thinking? Is he actually going to produce a few infestors, or is this just purely to move into Broodlords?
Well, Broodlords wouldn't be a good option now because there's so many Void Rays out. He's got to really find an effective way to do with it. He's getting Pathogen Glands, which is straight away saying, I'm going to be getting those Infestors out, because he needs to be looking at perhaps going for an awful lot of Infested Terrans just to try and soak up some of the damage, give some extra damage against those Void Ray. But it's one of these awkward competitions where Waira is thoroughly ahead in both supply, income. He's on equal bases. He's still doing a nice job of really trying to pick off expansions and manage his opponent, whereas Waira, at every push Dimaga's thrown at him, has effectively held off, at very worst losing both of their armies, which always favors the player with the better economy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point you're making there, Maddles. Another thing I would like to point attention to is the mistiming of the infestors that Dimaga is now producing. He's producing a lot of infestors. They're about to pop, but Pathogen Glands did not finish for the first few of them. Actually, the last batch that came out, they did not have the energy upgrade either, so they're not going to have Fungals ready right away. They're going to be at a quite big energy discrepancy as we see a few Void Rays get taken out by the Corruptors near the 5th base of Dimaga. He still does not have that top base. Waira continues to shut that down and down and down with Zealots and DTs all over, keeping the base count equal and just building up that Death Ball. And I think the Death Ball has gotten to a point where I don't think Dimaga can deal with it. He does have 16 Infestors though, but like you said, Infestors been hit quite hard with the Nerf Bat in the Heart of the Swarm beta, and on live they've taken a bit of damage too in the form of the Infested Terrans not benefiting from upgrades.
I mean, that's the thing you've always got to think is, even though Dimaga is going up to Hive Tech, what do you get as Hive Tech against this composition? Because you can get Broodlords out, but then, hang on, my opponent's got 11 Void Rays. They're just going to die, especially with the buffs to Void Rays and the fact that they can snipe them off near instantly. Do you go Ultras? Well, that deals with the ground army relatively okay, but again, Void Rays are just going to kill me, and Corruptors aren't a good solution against Mass Void Ray either, because the damage output from Void Rays is just so high now, especially with their charge ability. So really you kind of narrow down to, well, I need to do something with Roach Hydra Infestor maybe. It's quite awkward once it gets up to this spot for the Zerg player, in my opinion.
It is. I'm very curious to see how Dimaga is going to handle and how he's going to engage with this army. Are we going to see the Fungals be worth their money? Are we going to see the Infestors die like flies? I'm kind of expecting the latter, really. The upgrades for Waira are looking quite okay. His air upgrades, by the way, are pretty much non-existent. He has +1 air attack, but the same goes for Dimaga. So the upgrades relatively even. The army, the ground army that Waira has got going for himself is +3, +2, and +2/2 for Dimaga. So the upgrades are not going to be making the difference in this battle. Here come the Infested Terrans. Let's see how this battle is going to pan out, because it could very well be the last one of this game.
It could. Some good fungal growths do go down on those Void Rays, allowing the Infested Terrans to do some damage, but the Colossi at the back just cleaning everything up with the splash. A few Corruptors come in, but melting to those Void Rays. Of course, there are lots of neural parasites going off, or 2 at least. I thought there was going to be more, but it looks like Waira is going to clean this up very easily indeed. The Infested Terran just didn't have the damage with the Colossi there. The Zealot composition of Waira's army, which I saw a few people in chat criticizing, was just able to allow him to tank some more of that damage, and that was the purpose of them there. And behind this, of course, Waira does have Storm researched. He's getting some High Templar out now. He's also getting up the +2 air weapons as well. So his upgrades aren't huge. He's got the shield upgrades, he's got the 3/2 ground upgrades, and +1 air. So nothing too huge in terms of upgrade wise. Meanwhile, for Dimaga, he's seeing a 2/2 missile attack and +1 air. So nothing huge there either.
You know what I think is a bit of a disappointment, maybe a bit of a tip for Waira? He needs to use his Mothership Core a little bit more. It's just sitting idle at his 4th base for... It has been sitting idle at his 5th base, I should say, for a pretty long time. As the Corruptors are coming in here, that didn't really work out. Lost a few Corruptors pretty much for nothing there on a miss rally, while the Infestors and Roaches were dealing with another harassment attack at that top base of Dimaga. But we could really see a Mothership at this point in the game, and we could see that Time Warp makes such a big difference. I'm a bit disappointed.
I mean, obviously with Vortex no longer being in there, it's not something so critical to get out, and that was one of the reasons that they changed that. So I can see why we're not necessarily getting it down yet, but he could be using that Mothership Core more effectively. I mean,
there it goes.
some nice time warps could be good. And, well, as we've got so far, really the biggest problem facing Whiterot is that he's so gas-starved when he tries to remax. He gets very low on gas, and I'm surprised he hasn't taken this top base, actually, because he could take that quite comfortably. He is controlling the space on the map very, very well indeed.
Yeah, but Dimaga's basically just bled out. He's been on a lot of bases for a lot longer of a time. He finally got that top base up and running. And because of that, he's now on 3 bases, so his income is starting to get where it needs to be again. But his gas income is really, really lacking. He cannot max out on the units that he wants right now. He wants more Hydras, he wants more Roaches, but they're very gas-intensive. And he's now going to be forced to defend again against these Zealots that are harassing his economy constantly. Whiterot, such a passive player in this game. We've seen him be aggressive in the previous games so much, pushing in, maybe even being over-aggressive sometimes in the early game. But in the late game, Whiterot is not taking any risks.
Yeah, I can't help but feel he's doing it sort of backwards in that sense, that now when he could be doing with being a bit more aggressive, he's got the supply advantage, he's got this amazing death pool, he's sitting back and being passive, but early on, he very well nearly lost the game, actually losing all of his army, but he's Whiterot's still being a harassment player. He's sending DTs now into the main while harassing up at the 5th base at the top. Whiterot also got those High Templar out with Storm. That's really good because, of course, he can knock out the Infested Terrans super quick there, knock out the Roach Hydra super quick with the Colossi support, also deal with the air, also deal with the Infestors with feedback. So he's got such a nice composition now. It's pretty much the perfect endgame composition, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, it is. He's got a really good composition. A few DTs in the main base, like you pointed out, are harassing things. They're killing spore crawlers, they're killing extractors, which of course doesn't really do anything. Even if the hatchery would go down, wouldn't be that big of a difference. Another DT is softening up the Roach army a little bit. And the natural Dimaga, not really reacting to that right now. A lot of his units are on low HP, and there comes the Overseer to snipe that one DT off. The hatchery is probably going to go down in the main base. That DT will get it down. More DTs being warped in, but he sees the Overseer coming, so Whiterot going to choose to retreat, and we see some more carriers on the way. He tried it in the mid to late game, but now in the super late game, he's going to be adding them on once more, and he wants to fight with these Infestors.
He does indeed. He's pushing forward, Dimaga pulling back, and Dimaga's also got the issue of DTs dropping into this sort of the expansion to the left of his main. That is causing problems in itself. Of course, Whiterot still moving forward, still picking off some creep tumors, forcing back, hasn't taken the top base though, but doing a lot of damage and harassment with those DTs. With 45 workers this game, doesn't quite manage to snipe off the hatchery in time, but he lost mining time, he forced some damage, and Whiterot, as you rightly said, he's got such a huge army up now. He's got those 6 High Templar, all with full energy. That's a lot of Storms. He's got the 2 Carriers, the 10 Void Rays, and of course the 2 Colossi. What do you do against that army composition? Because
you lose.
yeah, obviously if Whiterot had a bad engagement, it wouldn't be very good. But to be honest, Dimaga, with what he's got at the moment, well, the Corruptors are melting to the Void Rays just straight away. Infested Terrans are going to melt. The hatchery goes down. Oh my goodness, that hatchery falls. That is pretty huge. And Infestor nearly goes down as well there. But Fungal Growth finally hitting. The Corruptor cleans out that War Prison. But Dimaga really could have done without that. He's really low on gas. Both players got loads of minerals, but gas is the problem. Lurlian, do you think there's any reason why Whiterot hasn't taken this top base though?
Do you think there's any reason why Whiterot has not moved across the map and won the game, Lurlian? No, I don't. I think he could win at any time he really wants to, but he's playing super safe and wants to get some carriers out, which is a good thing to do, of course. You know, when you're ahead, get more ahead is what Tastosis once said, a very wise couple of casters. But those 2 hatcheries going down for Dimaga was a big deal. That was all his gas income, basically. He only has 2 gas geysers mining at the moment in the middle of the map, so his gas income is going to be way, way low again. He needs to get those additional upgrades as he's doing right now. The Flyer attacks level 3 is on the way. The melee attacks level 2 is on the way, which is a bit of a low upgrade there. But of course, it's gonna... What is it really gonna benefit? The melee upgrades? He doesn't really have any melee units, does he? It's good.
No, he doesn't. Infested Terrans are coming down. There's a mass of Infestors. So mass Infested Terrans look to be the option Dimaga hopes to take. But Storms hitting, that is just going to force Dimaga back. And Dimaga has put so much into going mass Infested Terran. He's got 24 Infestors out, and Storms counter that so hard, it's untrue. And
Colossi too.
And Colossi. I mean, you've got so much splash damage there. A couple of carriers in there as well, but to be honest, this is just going to get taken down very quickly. A attempt at a neural parasite, but as we see, this is likely to be GG now. Dimaga doing everything he can, getting a burrow down, but of course losing so much damage. Does quite well have detection in the area? It would appear not, and as a result, that burrow is quite effective, but Dimaga, in what is a very large force in a very small amount of area, is just forcing Dimaga back at the moment, Lurlian.
Did snipe a few of the High Templar there. Wydra not quite controlling them correctly. He had a lot of full energy, or well, near full energy High Templar that ran to the front. Could have stormed the burrowed units a little bit, maybe killed a few more roaches, maybe killed a few more
the feedbacks, Lurlian! Did you see those?
Yeah, two good feedbacks there, but what does it really matter at this point?
It was one of those moments where I was like, oh my god, so many investors could die here. That would be pretty bad. But yep, here we go. We've got still the push forward. We've got Dimaga. Both are eyeing each other up now, Lurlian.
Yeah, they're just staring each other down at this point. They've divided the map. They're 43 minutes into this game, and Wydra's like, oh well, I would like to make some more carriers. I'm fine. I've got... How many carriers do I have right now? I've got 5 carriers with my main army. I've got 5 in total. I've got 10 Void Rays. I've got my mothership core. Still no mothership out on the field, because why would you get a mothership? There's no, real reason to do that right now. Is there?
No, there isn't. I don't see any real reason to go for a mothership, but that's the aim Blizzard wanted. They wanted to make a fun unit, but here comes some infested Terrans out, but the carriers are cleaning that up. The Void Rays cleaning that up. Of course, we do have a couple of High Templar out as well, so the Storm's not being used yet, but they are going to be there potentially. Straight away, one hit gets a couple of Corruptors caught in it, but this is Wydra really moving forward. The Storm's now hitting very well. We see the Void Rays going to start cleaning up these Corruptors, and Archon's morphing in. We've got so much damage being done. Dimaga's army just vaporizing near instantly to these 2 Colossi and mass Air Force, and I think this is going to be GG now. It's got to be GG now, because Dimaga just doesn't have anything, and there we go. This epic game